All right, good morning everybody and welcome to Daf Yomi. We are going to be doing page 107. Wow, the numbers are building up and it's wonderful to see so many of you on Zoom this morning. To the thousands watching on Zoom, to the millions watching on YouTube, we welcome you all to this exciting Daf today. We are going to be seeing the end of the 13th Perek and the start of the 14th Perek. Exciting times. So towards the end of the 13th Perek over here, the 13th chapter, we have been examining the different permutations of trapping different animals and different species. And so that's where we pick up from today. We're actually going to just start from the bottom of 106a. No, let's try that one again. 106b, because there's a Mishnah just at the bottom there that I feel it would be logical to start with, and then we will proceed with the rest of the page. So, has everybody got it up on their screens?
Yes.
Excellent. So here we go. Without further ado, let's get cracking. So, the Mishnah says as follows. There we go. Yashav ha'echad al ha'pesach velo mil'ahu. So you've got one person sitting at the doorway, and he is not filling the entire space of that doorway. Now, why do we need to talk about this? Just a little bit of a run through. We've said that if an animal goes into your house and you close the door, then that's a problem. You're not supposed to be doing that because you're trapping the animal in your house. We then said that if the door was so heavy to close by yourself, that the liability to bring a sacrifice for doing this inadvertently will only be reached if two people do it together. But if one person does it, then there would be exemption. All right. Now we're going to be talking about what if one person is sitting at the doorway and is not filling up this entire space, Uva Hasheni, and a second person comes along. Yashav Hasheni, Milu Hasheni Chaya. Second person comes along, he sits down, and because he is now sitting next to the first guy, they are filling that space together. But the space was only filled on account of the second guy's action. So that is why the Mishnah says Hasheni Chayav. The second guy is going to face the liability because he was the one that actually completed the malacha. He was the one that completed the trapping of his own accord, and so he will face the liability. Continues the Mishnah, Yashav Harishon ala Pesach. You've got one guy sitting at the doorway, Umilahu, and he is filling up that space. Uva Hasheni v'Yashav b'tzido, and the second guy comes along, and he's sitting next to him, but he is not actually adding anything to the trappedness of the animal inside. Which is why the Mishnah says, even if the first guy gets up and walks away, harishon chayav, the first guy is going to be chayav, but hasheni patur, the second guy is going to be exempt, because it was the first guy that actually did the malacha. Even though the malacha continues on account of the second guy's presence, nonetheless, only the first person will face liability for the action. Halamazeh domer, to what can this be compared? Lenoel is based on the Shomra of an Nimtza Svi Shama Batocho. It can be compared to a person who just locks his door and there happens to be an animal inside it, and then we find out that that the deer, the animal, is secured inside the house. So what we'll see over there is that the person would be exempt because he did not trap the animal. The animal was already trapped inside, and his action just might have secured that trappedness, but he was not the one who trapped it. Now, it's funny, David, because you were mentioning before about patur aval asur, things which are exempt, but they are forbidden to do nonetheless. The exemption to that is actually the Gemara that we're about to see. The what's the word? The exclusion to that fact is in this Gemara. So let's give it a go. Top of the page now, on page 107, with the words of the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rav Chia Bar Ashi, Amar Rav. Rabbi Abba said in the name of Rav Chia Bar Ashi, who said in the name of Rav. If you go into your house and there's a bird under your jacket, then the person may sit with it and keep it there until dark, and they won't have violated anything per se through that action. Meisiv Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak challenges this. 1 second. We've seen in our Mishnah, Yashav Harishon ala Pesach Milahu. We're going to see this quote a few times on the page, by the way. Yashav Harishon ala Pesach Milahu. You've got one person sitting in the doorway. He's filling up the whole space. Uba Hasheni v'yashav b'tzidon. The second guy comes along and sits by his side. Alfa Pish Amad Harishon v'halach lo. Even if the first person gets up and leaves, Harishon Chai v'Hasheni patur. The first guy is liable and the second guy is exempt. What are we talking about here? Lav patur aval asur. Are we not saying that the second guy is patur, but also that he's not allowed to do it, which regularly is what patur means. In all of these instances that we've seen, where the Mishnah, the Gemara says patur, it means you're not allowed to do it, but if you did it, you wouldn't have to bring a korban. So one of the three exceptions is here, because the Gemara now says, lo, patur muta. It actually means that if the second guy sat down, he would be allowed to sit down, and he would not face any liability at all. And I think similarly what we're saying is that a person who had a bird under his jacket, therefore it would not have to worry about how long you trap it for, how long you keep it for, waiting till after dark, because it's going to be patur umuta. So hachinami here also mistavra mitakatani seifa lamazed domer. So we can actually see this in the words of the Mishnah as well, because what the Mishnah went on to say was, to what can this be compared? It can be compared to a person who locks his house, and it just so happens that there was an animal trapped or contained inside. Miklal de patur muta. That would imply that you're allowed to lock your door. It's not that you're not allowed to lock your door, but if you did, then you would not have to bring a korban. What we're saying over here actually is that in the case of trapping, that if you locked your house up and there was an animal inside it, then you are actually allowed to lock your house. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. And if there is an animal inside, then the animal will get trapped inside, but you're allowed to do that. Shmamina, yeah, that is a fair assumption to make, says the Gemara. Then, Iked Amri. Some say this same lesson in a slightly different manner. So you're going to see the same thing again, just from a slightly different angle. Iked Amri, Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak said, Af Anan Nami Tanina. We've even learned this in the Mishnah. Afal Pisha Amad Arisha V'halach lo. Even if the first person gets up and walks away, Harishon Chayav Sheni Patur. The first guy is Chayav, and the second guy is Patur. Remember, the first guy was filling up the whole entranceway. The second guy sat down, and when the first guy gets up, now the second guy is blocking the entrance, right? So over there, the Mishnah said Patur. So the Gemara asks, "My love patur muta." Are we not saying that it's patur and he's allowed to do it? And the Gemara answers, "Lo patur aval asur." No, he would not be allowed to do it. Hamitz seifa halamazed domer. And we see from our Mishnah later on to what can it be compared? Lenoel es beisol shomro v'nimsa svi shama b'socha. A person who locks the door and gets up, and then there's a deer that is contained within the house. Miklal. The patur muta. This implies that you are exempt, but you would be allowed to do this. Shmamina again. The Gemara concludes, yeah, you're right, fine. If we're talking about a natural chain of events that leads to an animal being contained inside the house, you would be allowed to do that. So now we have our fundamental rule. David, it's almost like this was written especially for you, unless you actually cheated and read ahead, I don't know. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Kol Paturi to Shabbat. Any time that we have been talking in the last 106 pages, anytime that we have said the words pater with regards to a person's actions on Shabbos, pater aval aser, we have been saying that you are exempt from bringing a korban and you are not allowed to do these things. Lebar mahani tlas, except for 3 instances, the pater umuta, except for 3 instances where you are exempt, but it's permitted to perform the action. So now we're going to run through those 3 cases in these last few lines before the end of the chapter. Chadaha, the first one is what we've been talking about, which is trapping an animal. Umimai de pater umuta, and how do we know that you are exempt and it is permitted? Because we saw the end of our Mishnah. The Ketani Seifa, as we saw at the end of our Mishnah, what can this be compared to? A person who locks the door to protect his home, and it turns out that there was a deer inside the home, so there he would be exempt, and it would be mutter for him to do as well. The second case, V'idach, Hamapis Mursa b'Shabbos, person who pops a zit. I imagine they've got a slightly different translation over here. Let's see. One who drains an abscess. B'Shabbos, im lasos la pe chayav. If the person is doing it to create, as it says here, a permanent opening in it, chayav. But im lahotzi mimena lecha. But if his intention is to get fluid, to extract the pus from it, then patur. There's that word again. You would be exempt. Umimai de patur mutter. And how do we know that you should be patur and it's allowed to do? That's none, as we see in the Mishnah. Machat shel yad litol ba'es hakot. You're allowed to use a needle, which ordinarily you're not allowed to do for sewing, but you're allowed to use the needle for a different purpose, such as taking out a thorn, right? So the concept behind this over here is you're allowed to use call it in inverted commas, a forbidden item, but you're doing it for a permitted action. So things like hammers, which you can't use to hammer in nails and things like that, but you can use them to crack nuts if you needed to. So so items that you would normally employ for forbidden actions, you can use for permitted actions, right? And the example that it brings over here is with regards to opening up spaces in your skin, either to remove a thorn or to extract pus that's inside, or pop a zit, whatever it is. So all of these things would be patur umutar, and they break from the normal rule, which is that they would be biblically exempt but forbidden rabbinically. The final case, v'idach, we are 5 lines up if you're following inside the page. Hatzad nachash b'Shabbos. If you trap a snake on Shabbos, in misasek bo shelo yishkenu patur. If you're doing it so that it doesn't bite you, then it's going to be patur, and we're going to see patur and permitted. Im l'refuah, if you're trapping the snake because you want to be able to tap it for its medicinal purposes, then, says the mission that we're quoting, chayav, then you're going to be liable. Umimai de patur umuta, and from where do we know that it would be patur and permitted? Titnan, because we learn in the Mishnah, kofin ka'ara al haner b'shvil shelo te'echos b'korah. We are allowed to cover a candle with a bowl in order that the flame should not, God forbid, catch fire, or in order that the beam above it should not catch fire. And you're allowed to cover, using a bowl, you're allowed to cover up the excrement of a child. And you're allowed to cover a scorpion so that it will not bite. And so, whereas ordinarily we would say this should be trapping, we're being taught over here that one is allowed to do it to prevent that animal, that insect, whatever dangerous species it might be. You're allowed to cover them in order to stop it from biting you. So, 3 instances where it's pater and permitted, where you are exempt and permitted, and all the other cases that we talk about, therefore, would be patur, would have exemption from biblical intentions and would be forbidden. Right, so just to try and see if I can spell this out a little clearer, right? The Torah has told us things that we're not allowed to do, but there has to be a certain threshold to meet those criteria biblically, right? And so over the last however many pages where we've talked about different thresholds and different measurements, that has all been to see whether, from a biblical point of view, you have done this action to a point of liability. And so when we have said that you have not done this action to a point of biblical liability, the rabbis still say that it's forbidden, but you do not have to bring a sacrifice for it. Join me now as we say these three words on the screen over here. Hadran alach ha'oreg, Hadran alach ha'oreg, Hadran alach ha'oreg. We have completed the 13th chapter. Mazel tov on completing the 13th chapter. Phenomenal accomplishment. Only 11 more to go. Here we go then with the 14th chapter. We crack on straight away. Why wait? We start with the perek known as Shmona Shratzin, the 8 creeping animals. And what we're going to be talking about here, it does get quite scientifically questionable, not going to lie. The page that we are about to see now is a source of huge contention, not only in current times, but also in the times as early as the Rishonim, with regards to, in particular, the genesis of lice. We'll see a little bit later on that there's this very surprising comment by the rabbis that lice are capable of spontaneous generation. That they don't rely on sexual reproduction to be able to propagate, and just to kind of spell out where this ends up leading to. This ends up leading to a few different camps. Those that believe that lice spontaneously generate, even though we have scientific proof and evidence to the contrary. There's also a camp, however, that says that when the rabbis talk in that fashion, they are dealing with things that one can see with the naked eye. And since they did not have the sophisticated microscopes to be able to accurately figure out how lice propagate, therefore, if they had known it, then they might have said differently, but they didn't say differently. And so we just have to archive this, so to speak, with areas that they might not have had the best scientific knowledge at their disposal when saying what they say a little bit later on. And the third school of thought says that no, it could be that at one point there was a species that did propagate in this way, and therefore it's accurate. So there's some exciting further reading to be done on this topic, and very important that when you do your further reading on this topic, that you go to the right sources, so that you don't encounter things that.
It has obviously captured your imagination, this thing about lice, and I've read that far ahead to understand it, but I think that your comment about further scientific or even sociological developments, if they have known it then they may have thought differently. That surely can apply to great swathes of the Gemara, surely. I don't know how.
I wouldn't say great swathes. I wouldn't even sure I'd say swathes. Is it swathes or swaths?
Great, some
yeah.
large parts.
I couldn't say with any kind of conviction what percentage we would be talking about. There are instances in the Talmud where that kind of challenge can be made. Just so happens that this one got a lot of attention, even as early as the son of the Rambam. in talking about this, and then that has followed through several different commentaries throughout the years. And all I would say is one has to just not come to it with an open mind, but also just to when reading about this topic, to just understand different people's mindsets when discussing this article, because I've seen stuff on Tinternet where conclusions are drawn, arguments are made, but you don't get the feeling like they're doing it because they want to, embrace the beauty of God's Torah, but rather come at it from an angle where they can squash everyone and everything. So it pays to just have some caution when looking at it. But we don't shy away from anything here, and we're going to crack on with the 14th parak. I also can't take any responsibility for any other scientific observations of anatomy as we see it in this chapter. Shmona shiratzim ha'amurim b'Torah. There are 8 creepy crawlies, creeping animals that are mentioned in the Torah. Now, these 8 animals are Cholad, Achbar, Tzav, Anaka, Koach, Leta'a, Chemet, and Tinshemet. Right? They have numerous translations across different sources. You can see the way that Safaria translates it there. I have a slightly different translation from wherever I picked up things from. So these are not universally agreed upon as to what all 8 of these shratzim are. But just to count off the ones that I've got here: weasel, mouse, toad, hedgehog, lizard, crocodile, snail, and mole.
Okay.
Oh, I'm just going to mute you, David. Not because I don't like you, just because you're shouting Nikki. Shmona shiratzim ha'amurim b'Torah. So there are 8 creeping animals that are talked about in the Torah. And the rule that the Mishnah presents that applies to these 8 animals is Hatzadan v'achovel b'hem chayav. A person who traps them or wounds them, meaning that they cause these animals to bruise, is going to be chayav for that action. So if you trap them or if you wound them, you're going to be chayav. Ushar shkatzim v'ramashim. When it comes to other shkatzim v'ramashim, which translates it here as abominations and crawling things, so other insects and other gross animals. So the Mishnah says, Hachovel b'hen patur. If you wound them, you are going to be patur. And simplistically, the reason for this is as follows. When you bring a bruise about, so there is a conversation that takes place as to what you have done. According to one opinion, you have shechted them, you have killed them in a way because you have brought this blood to the surface, and so therefore that's a problem. According to others, you have colored the surface of the skin, you have dyed the surface of the skin, so to speak, by bringing this bruise to the surface. The problem that we have is, what if it's an animal that doesn't bruise? And so the fact that the Mishnah says, with regards to other creepy crawlies, if you wound them, you're going to be patur. That is going to be because there is, there's no distinction layer between the surface of the skin and the blood inside. So if the skin gets discolored, it's not on account of what's going on underneath the surface of the skin, or some words to that effect. But if you trap them for a need, you're going to be chayev. And if you have no need for them, shalol tzorech patur. If you had no need for them, then you are going to be patur for trapping them. Meaning, if they are not a species that one would ordinarily trap, then if you did trap it, you are going to be patur. Chayav of shebirashuso. If you have got an animal or a bird in your domain, in your possession, then the Mishnah says that Sadan Patur, if you trap them, you're going to be Patur, which we've said before. Domesticated animals are not subject to being trapped. V'achovel bahem chayav. If you wound them, then you're going to be chayav. You're going to be liable again, because these will be animals that when you bruise them, there is something going on under the surface of the skin that is becoming discolored, and for that you will face liability. I think that's a fair and accurate way of explaining what's going on. So, mitakatani hachova, from the fact that the Mishnah says one who wounds, right? Mitakatani hachova bahen chayav. From the fact that the Mishnah teaches that you will have liability for wounding them, michlal de islahu or. This would imply that these 8 shratzim have skins, and that is the basis for the arguments that we see here. Do they have skin or not? Mantana, who is the authority behind this teaching in the Mishnah? Amar Shmuel, Shmuel said, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nurihi. It is none other than Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. It's none, as we see in the Mishnah, in Maseches Chulin, which we won't come to for some time. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer, Shmona Shratzim Yesh Lahen Oros. He teaches over there that there are 8 Shratzim, the ones that we've mentioned, that have got skins. They have halachically got a hide. And as we can see here, you can only be liable for inflicting a wound when there is skin covering the flesh and the blood pools beneath it. So according to him, these 8 animals have skins. Now, there's a separate conversation that takes place in Shas with regards to these 8 animals, regards to whether they have skin or not, and that is with regards to the ability for animals to transmit tumah, for them to be able to transmit impurity. And as we're going to see, they can only transmit impurity if they have got skins. So that is why this comes up elsewhere in Shas. Right, if they have got a layer of skin, a layer of hide, that means they've got flesh underneath it, and then they would have their bones, right? And so if that's the case, then we see, as we can see over here, their flesh will transmit tumah, their skin will not transmit tumah. And the rabbi, oh, we haven't got that yet, I'm sorry. It is Rabbi Yochanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, right? Yeah, listen to that. Oh no, we have done. The rabbis say that both the skin and the flesh of some animals will transmit impurity. Okay, so it gets quite technical and quite difficult, but hey, I do my best. So that's the first position. Titnan, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Moshmona Shratzim Yesh Lahem Oros. 8 things have got skin. Rabbi bar Rav Huna Amarav. Rav says, Afilu Tema Rabbanan. You could even say that this works in accordance with the rabbis, because Adkan lo pligi Rabbanan aled Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, because the rabbis only disagreed with Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri ela le'inyan tumah, with regards to tumah. But for Shabbos, which we've been talking about, they would actually agree. Dichsiv, because it says in the pasuk, Ele hatmeim lachem, these are the ones that are impure for you. L'rabos she'oroseihem k'v'sara. This includes animals that their skin is like their flesh, and they will transmit impurity. Aval le'inyan Shabbos afilu rabbanan modu. But with regards to Shabbos, the rabbis would agree with regards to these 8 shruts and these 8 animals. So the Gemara asks, the inyan Shabbos lo pligi, do they really not argue about Shabbos? Now, very, very, what an unusual thing to say, but we have a brisa that says, if you track one of these 8 animals that are listed in the Torah, then it would only be the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri who says you are chayav. The Chachamim say, Ein or ella lema shemanu Chachamim. And the rabbis says that it's only going to be the ones that are, the only ones that have got or, that have got skins, are the ones that are mentioned by the rabbis, which I believe is only 4 of them. So the Gemara says, Adarabba, on the contrary, lema shemanu Chachamim ein lahem or, the ones that the sages and the ones that the sages count in Maseches Chulin are the ones that don't have skins. Va'amar Abaye hachika amar, and Abaye said, this is what we would have to be saying. Ein or chaluk mibasar elet amash lo manu chachamim. The only ones that have got skin which is distinct from their flesh are the ones that the rabbis have enumerated. Amalei Rava says, Halama Shemana Chachamim Ka'amar. This is what Amalei Rava Halama Shemana Chachamim Ka'amar. And so this is what we're saying, that it's only the ones that Chachamim have enumerated. Ela Amar Rava Haki Ka'amar. So Rava has to revise our answer over here. Ein or metame kabasa ela lama shemana chachamim. The only skins that spread impurity, like flesh, are the ones that the sages listed, meaning that their skin is not distinct from their flesh, and only those ones will be metame. Michlal de Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, that would imply that the teaching of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Hanach Nami de lo manu chachamim metamim. He would say that that these animals that the chachamim have not listed would transmit tumah, would transmit impurity. V'hakatani Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer shmona shiratzim yesh lahem oros v'lo metamim. That is what we're saying, that there's 8 things. The Rabbi Yochanan says there are 8 animals that have skin that do not transmit tumah. So we say, Ela Amar Rav Ada bar Masna Tarit Tachi. So Rav Ada bar Masna explains it as follows. The Chachamim say, Le'inyan tumah, ein or lema shemanu Chachamim. With regards to tumah, the ones listed by the Chachamim, which are only 4 of them, so those ones do not have skin, which is why, according to this position, they're only disagreeing about tumah. Va'akati le'inyan Shabbos lo pligi. And therefore, we would say that with regards to Shabbos, they're not disagreeing. So now the Gemara is going to challenge this again. V'hatanya hatzad echad mech shmona shiratzim ha'amurim b'Torah ha'chovel b'hain chayav b'shiratzim sheyesh lahen oros. We have a teaching that says what we've been saying in a slightly different way. That if you trap one of the 8 animals that are mentioned in the Torah, then if you wound them, you're going to be chayav, because these are animals that have got skins. And what? Oh, I think that might be the. No, okay. So we're talking about wounding animals that have got skins. And what would be considered a wound that does not, I like that translation, an irreversible wound. What is considered to be an irreversible wound? Says the Gemara, Nitzra Hadam, Afal Pi Shelo Yatzah. The blood accumulates in that area, Afal Pi Shelo Yatzah, even if it doesn't come out, meaning that bruising these animals is considered chavala, is considered wounding. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Omer Shmona Shiratzim Yesh Lahen Oros. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says that these 8 creeping animals have skins. So at this point, we're still thinking that there is a disagreement. I had a better word. That there is a disagreement between Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri and the Chachamim. Amar Ravashi. Ravashi says, Man Tanakama. Who is the first opinion of our Mishnah? And the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yehuda. It's actually Rabbi Yehuda. The Azil Basar Gishata. He follows the texture of the skin. Whether does it feel like skin or does it feel like flesh? How thick is it? That is going to be the distinguishing factor for Rabbi Yochanan. Meaning, he does not distinguish between those creeping animals whose skin is considered like flesh and those whose skin is discrete from the flesh, as the verses may imply. Rather, they are distinguished based on the texture of their skin. Ditnan, as we see in a Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Halata'a kachulda. A lizard is like a weasel. Brilliant, they translate it the same way. So just like a weasel has skin distinct from its flesh, so too does a lizard. Aval Rabbanan depligli alei Rabbi Yochanan le'inyan tumah le'inyan Shabbos module. But he says, Rabbanan, who may disagree with Rabbi Yochanan with regards to impurity, with regards to Shabbos, they would all be in agreement. Ihachi, hi divrei Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. If that's the case, then why has it said divrei Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri? That it only lists it as the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Surely it should have said divrei Rabbi Yochanan machlukaso mebayle. It should have said these are the words of Rabbi Yochanan and those who disagree with him. But it didn't say that, which would indicate that there is actually a machlokes. Tani divrei Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri umachlukuson. Well, actually, the Gemara responds, that's not difficult. We will just amend it to teach that they are all in agreement. These are the words of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, and anyone who disagrees with him, they would hold the same thing. So with regards to our Mishnah then, we would read this Mishnah as being consistent between all these authorities, all of these opinions, and therefore the halacha remains the same with regards to Shabbos, and then the discrepancies that we see with regards to different types of skin and different types of flesh, that's only going to apply in the realm of impurity, of tumah, and not in our realm of Shabbos over here. I hope you all got that. If not, there's a whole day to learn this stuff over and over again to really get it under your belt. Levi asked Rebbe, Levi asked Rebbe a question. From where do we know that this chabura, that this wound, which we are chayav for on Shabbos, is classified as something that is irreversible, a bruise that will not go away immediately? Dichsiv hayahafoch kushi ora v'namer chavav rusav. Can a kushi change their skin, and can a leopard change their spots? To which the Gemara asks, my chavar v'rosav. What is the meaning of this word, which we've already translated as spots, but what are we talking about? Ilay madakai rikmi rikmi. If you say that they are the spots on the skin of a leopard, hai v'namer chavar v'rosav. Why does it say a leopard and its spots? Nemer garvanav mibayne. It should have said the leopard and its colors. Ella kakushi. Rather, it compares wounds to the skin of a kushi. Ma'orod de kushi en chazeres. In the same way that the dark pigmentation of a kushi will not become lighter. Af chavura en chazeres. So too, the color resultant from a wound will also not reverse. Continuing with the Mishnah, Ushar Shkatzim B'chule. We had said in our Mishnah before that with regards to other insects and creepy crawlies, that if you trap them, you are going to be exempt. Meaning, if you trap them for no need, that if you trap them for no need, you are going to be exempt. If you trap them for a need, you will be chayav. So that's where the Gemara is picking up over here now. So the Gemara says, first of all, hahorgan chayav. If you were to kill these, other things, then you will be chayav for doing so. Mantana, who is the authority of this Mishnah? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Rabbi Eliezer. It's Rabbi Eliezer. To Tanya, because we've seen the Baraisa. Rabbi Eliezer Omer hahoreg kina b'Shabbos kahoreg gamal b'Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer says a person who kills a lice on Shabbos is as if he has killed a camel on Shabbos. Maskil la Rav Yosef, but Rav Yosef challenges this. This is what I was referring to. Ad kan lo pligi Rabbanan alei de Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbanan agree with Rabbi Eliezer up until this point of the lice. Ella bekina de'ena para v'rava, with the exception of a kina who does not procreate. Aval shashikasim v'ramashim deparim v'rabim lo pligi. But with regards to other animals and creepy crawlies who do procreate, so they would agree that you are not allowed to kill them. Ushneim lo lamdua elam elim, and both of them learn their opinions from, where are we? We're over here now. They both learn their halachic positions from rams. We used to kill rams to be able to use their hides to decorate the Mishkan. And so that is the source or the origin for learning out that we're not allowed to kill animals on Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer Sava Ka'elim. Rabbi Eliezer holds that anything similar to a ram, Ma'elim sheyesh bahen netilas neshama, af kol sheyesh bo netilas neshama, that you're only going to be chayav for killing things that have got a life, and that will include lice. V'Rabbanan sabri Ka'elim, and the rabbis hold Ka'elim as well. They hold that the logic extends from rams as well. Ma'elim deparim v'ravin, just like rams procreate. Af kol deparim v'ravin, so to anything that procreates, and that's going to exclude lice. Amalei Abaye, v'kina ein parim v'rava, and Abaye says and asks incredulously, don't lice procreate? V'ha'amamar Yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'zam mikarnei re'emim ha'beit zikedim. Don't we see that Hashem sits and nourishes and provides sustenance to everything in the world, from the horns of the antelope to the lice of the eggs? Is that how it translates it there? From the horns of wild oxen to the eggs of lice. So therefore, he's picking up on a valid point over here, that lice actually procreate and reproduce by laying eggs. They don't just kind of spontaneously regenerate. So the Gemara answers to that, Minahu de Mikri Beitze Kinin. There is a species that is known as Beitze Kinin, the lice eggs, but they don't actually lay eggs, which, as we've talked about already, may not be consistent with scientific opinion. Vahatanya, but we have a baraisa where it teaches different types of things, and it says Tufuye, which is a type of insect, Beitze Kinin, and it mentions this Beitze Kinin again. So surely we must be saying that lice procreate by laying eggs, reproduce by laying eggs. Minahu to Mikri Beitze Kinin. It's the same answer again. There is a species that is known as lice eggs. Vahare Parish to Power Varava. There is the flea. Does it translate it as flea? Yeah. There is a flea which procreates. The Tanya Hatzad Parish B'Shabbos Rabbi Eliezer Mechayev Rabbi Yehoshua Pota. And yet we see that there is a baraisa which teaches that if a person traps a flea on Shabbos, then according to Rabbi Eliezer, he's going to be chayev, and Rabbi Yehoshua, he's going to say that you are exempt. Amar Rav Ashi, Seidah Aharik Karamis. Are you trying to raise a contradiction between halacha as it applies to killing and the halacha as it applies to trapping? Ad kan lo pligi Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua don't really disagree. Ella, except in the following instance, Damar Sava Dava She'ein B'min on Nitza Chayev, Mar Sava Pata. Rabbi Eliezer is going to say that any species that is not usually trapped is going to nonetheless be liable, and Rabbi Yehoshua would say that a species that is not normally trapped, meaning trapped for any use, that you need to use it for something. So according to Rabbi Yehoshua, you're going to be Pata. Aval Le'inyan Hariga Afilu Rabbi Yehoshua Moda. But with regards to killing, then even Rabbi Yehoshua would agree with Rabbi Eliezer. Continues the quoting from the Mishnah. Hatzadan Latzorach Chayev. If you trap it for a need, then you're going to be Chayev. If you trap it for no need, then you're going to be Pata. So the Gemara asks again, Mantana, who is the authority behind this ruling in the Mishnah? Answers the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Rabbi Shimon he. It's Rabbi Shimon the Amar, because as we've famously said a few times, Malacha she'en tzricha legufa patur aleha. Any malacha that you do, but you were doing it not because you wanted the benefit of that malacha, you wanted something else done, which is allowed on Shabbos. So according to Rabbi Shimon, if you do a prohibited action, but you're not doing it for the intended outcome of that action, you're doing it for some other kind of outcome, for some other benefit, which would be allowed, then patur aleha, then you are not going to face liability. Ve'ika demasni la'aha, and there are those who teach it in the following way. Hatzad nachash b'Shabbos, if you trap a snake on Shabbos, in misasek bo shelo yishkenu patur, if you are doing it so that it doesn't bite you, then you're going to be exempt. Im li'refuah, if you are doing it to, if you're doing it because you want to tap its medicinal virtues, then you're going to be chayav. So there you go. Trapping is a malacha on Shabbos, but as Rabbi Shimon would say, you're not trapping for the sake of tapping it for its benefit. You're doing it to stop it from biting you. So you're doing a malacha, but you're not doing it for the benefit of that malacha. You're doing it for some other reason. So you're going to be patur. You are. That's not going to be something that Rabbi Shimon says that you are chayav for. So Mantana, who was the teacher of that position, Rabbi Yehuda Amarav, Rabbi Shimon he. So that's going to be the opinion again of Rabbi Shimon, who says that a malacha that is not for the main intention, you're going to be patur for. Amar Shmuel, another example. Wow. Oh, how have we got? I think I skipped a bit. Sorry. Yes, it did. Sorry, I'm a few lines up. A person who pops the zit, if it was to make an opening, you're going to be chayav. If it's to extract the pus, then you're going to be patur. Mantana, who is the author? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amarav. Rav says it's Rabbi Shimon. That a malacha she'ein legufa is patur. And then we saw it in another way, which we've just read about. Saw it taught in another way, that with regards to a snake, if you're not doing it for the medicine purposes, then you are going to be patur. And we said again, that is Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shimon's position. Then we say, Amar Shmuel, Hashole dag min hayam, person who takes out a fish from the water. So, what is going to be the point of liability for killing this fish? Kevan shiyavesh bo kesela chaya. As soon as an area the size of a cellar dries out on this fish, you are going to be chayav. Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Avin. Rabbi Yossi bar Avin says it must be bein snapirav. This area must appear between its fins. At that point, it's not going to be able to survive outside the water. Amar Rav Ashi lo seima yavesh mamash. Don't think that it's talking about literally getting dried. Ella afilu da'avad riri. But even if it's drying to a point that this kind of slimy substance, residue, appears on the surface of the fish, that already is going to be the point of no return, to which you would be liable for having killed this fish. Amar Mar bar Hamaduri Amar Shmuel. Mar bar Hamaduri said in the name of Shmuel, Hoshit yado leme'ei behema v'daldel uba sheben me'eha chayav. A person who reaches his hands into the innards, into the inside of an animal, and detaches a fetus, is going to face liability. My timer. What is the reason for this? Amar Rabba bar Hamduri. Rabba bar Hamduri says, Asvarali. It just seemed logical. This is what was explained to me. Lav Amarav Sheshis Haiman Talash Kashusa Mehizmi Vehigi Mechayev Mishim Oke Dava Migidula. Didn't Rav Sheshes say that one who detaches hops on Shabbos from different growths and thorn bushes, that they are going to be liable for having removed something from its place of growing? So to here, you are going to face liability for uprooting something from its place of growth. So that's what you've done. By dislodging this fetus, you've uprooted it from its place of growth. And in the same way that you can be chayav for doing that with a plant, you would be chayav for doing that with an animal as well. Amar Abaye, Abaye says, Haiman talash pitra me'una techatzba mechayev mishum oked davar megidula. This extends to other areas as well. A person who detaches a mushroom that was growing on the handle of a jug is going to be chayav, again, for uprooting something from its place of growth. Meisiv Rav Oshia objected to this. HaTolish me'atzis nakav chayav, ve'she'enu nakav patur. We have a rule that you're only going to be chayav for detaching a plant on Shabbos if it's connected to the ground, right? If it's not connected to the ground, then you're not going to be chayav. Meaning, if you've got a plant pot which has a hole at the bottom of it that connects to the ground, then uprooting that plant, you'll be chayav because it's drawing its nourishment from the ground. But a plant pot that is not perforated, meaning it's just growing in isolation, if you uproot that, then you're not going to be chayav for detaching. And so he would therefore extend this to say that anything that is not attached to the ground is not going to be facing liability. So a mushroom, which is not connected to the ground, and it's growing from the handle of this jug, you are not going to be chayiv for that. So the Gemara answers, Hasam lav hainu revise, hacha hainu revise. It all depends on where these things would normally grow and where these things would normally be planted, or whatever the case may be. So if a plant is growing in a flower pot that is not connected to the ground, it might be able to grow there, but it's not the normal way for something to grow. The normal way is for things to grow in the ground. When it comes to a fetus inside an animal, that's the normal way for it to grow. When it comes from a mushroom being able to grow on the side of a jug, well, that's normal. It doesn't have to only grow in the ground. They don't get nourished from the ground. They get nourished from the air. And so that would be the distinction that the Gemara resolves this problem with. And that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you'll join us again for more Daf Yomi. Next week, we will be visiting the exciting world of page 114. So in the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful week.